There's a pig Peppa and a human Peppa, but which one is the real one? And it gets worse. One of the Peppa Pig copies is going to be banned from YouTube, and even Bluey has been accused of copying the little pig. Wolfu. The case of Wolfu, a Vietnamese cartoon about a little wolf, got so serious that it ended up in court. The show has a lot of similarities to Peppa Pig because its visual style is practically identical to the little pig's cartoon, and even its story is similar, with episodes about Wolfu playing with his friends and getting into trouble. The main difference is that the main character is a wolf. And zoom in right here, Wolfu's friend is a pig who looks a lot like Peppa. The worst part is that all these similarities are going to get the show banned from YouTube. That's because in 2022, Hasbro, the company that owns Peppa Pig, sued the company responsible for the Wolfu episodes. The actual accusation is that episodes of the Vietnamese cartoon were taking audio clips and sound effects from Peppa Pig episodes and using them as if they were their own. That's a serious accusation that goes way beyond ordinary plagiarism, and that's exactly why, after years of legal proceedings, the judge ruled that Wolfu episodes will have to be removed from YouTube. Yep, just goes to show that copying other people is never a good idea. But there are plenty of other Peppa Pig copies for us to talk about today. You already know, right? Another Cinewave is starting! Dolly and Friends. One of the most shameless copies is Dolly and Friends, the cartoon about a little sheep. Everything about this animation looked a lot like the Little Pigs show. Compare Dolly's house to Peppa's house and you'll see exactly what we mean. The two places are identical, and it doesn't stop there. The kitchen and other rooms are complete copies too. Even the show's art style looks a lot like Peppa Pig, just like in Wolfu's case. And the target audience is the same, preschool-aged children. But this story has a slightly happier ending because over time, the Dolly and Friends series went through some changes and started being made with 3D animation. That completely changed the look of the show and made it much less similar to Peppa Pig, proving that it's never too late to stop being a copy. And here's a fun fact, the main character of this cartoon is named Dolly as a reference to Dolly the sheep, who existed in real life and was the first mammal to be cloned from an adult animal. Hippo Kid Games. At least Dolly eventually created an identity of its own, but the next one went in the opposite direction. It took the resemblance to Peppa and turned it into an entire franchise of children's games. The main character in these games is a hippo named Hippo, but take a good look at this girl. She looks a lot like the little pig. Here we see a strategy that's very common in mobile games. This company created a character who looks like Peppa and even gave her a name that sounds similar to hers, all to trick young kids into downloading their games because they think they're official Peppa Pig games. And it's not just Peppa. The other characters look a lot like different members of the pig family. Olivia the Pig. Hippo Kid Games is a pretty shameless copy, but have you ever heard of Olivia the Pig? A cartoon about a young pig in a red dress who goes on adventures with her family and has a younger brother in a blue shirt. Yeah, that description fits Peppa Pig so perfectly that it almost seems impossible to say this isn't another copy. But here's the thing, what if we told you that Peppa Pig is actually the real copy in this story? That's because Olivia the Pig first appeared as a book in 2000, while the first episode of Peppa Pig was released in 2004, years later. With so many similarities, it's possible that Peppa's show copied this book series. The thing is, even though the Olivia books came out first and may have inspired Peppa Pig, the cartoon adaptation of the books wasn't released until 2009, a few years after Peppa had already become one of the most famous characters in children's animation. Maybe Olivia the Pig was trying to ride the hype of the cartoon that copied it and ended up becoming more popular. So, who do you think copied who? Comment hashtag Peppa or hashtag Olivia down below so we know what you think.
Whee!
Peppa the Awakening. The crazy thing is that Peppa Pig fans themselves created a copy of her in the form of a comic book, and its story is pretty dark. We're talking about Peppa the Awakening, which is about a macabre version of the Peppa Pig world where everything is manipulated by Miss Rabbit. A lot of bizarre things happen in this story. For example, it starts with Peppa realizing that more than 20 years have already passed, and even so, she hasn't aged, a reference to the fact that the show has been getting new episodes for 2 decades, and Peppa is still a child. Technically, Peppa the Awakening isn't exactly a copy, but rather a fanfic. In other words, an unofficial Peppa Pig story created by fans, but one that doesn't try to pretend it's something original. We can treat it like an alternate Peppa Pig universe. Then again, a lot of people believe that Miss Rabbit really is secretly evil in the official version of the show, and is responsible for everything bad that happens in it. Barry. Going back to the more classic style copies, did you know that Wolfu, the Peppa Pig ripoff that got sued, became so successful that it got a spin-off? And its name is Barry, this time focusing on a little polar bear. We probably don't even need to tell you that this spin-off has the same similarities to Peppa too, right? The identical animation style, the characters who could easily pass as official supporting characters from Peppa Pig, and the sound effects taken directly from the Little Pig show all prove that they weren't even trying to keep anyone from noticing the plagiarism. The creators of Wolfu basically thought, if we managed to copy it once, why not do it again? Little Red Riding Hood and Friends. The situation with Little Red Riding Hood and Friends is pretty funny. Everyone knows that Little Red Riding Hood has existed for much longer than Peppa, but the poor girl ended up in a children's cartoon with a style that was completely copied from Peppa. Just look at these characters. At a glance, it's easy to get confused and think they came straight out of an episode of Peppa Pig. Simple shapes, thick outlines, big eyes, rosy cheeks, and backgrounds with very few details, exactly like the Little Pig's cartoon. This Brazilian animation brings together Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White, and other fairy tale characters, but the similarities to a certain show from England are so obvious that it's hard to even focus on that. This plagiarism may be impressive, but it still doesn't compare to the time Peppa Pig was banned from an entire country. Peppa banned. That happened in 2018 in China, when a Chinese app called Douyin deleted more than 30,000 Peppa Pig videos. The reason is more absurd than anyone could imagine. Peppa had been turned into a symbol of rebellion among teenagers. Even though she's a character from a children's show that teaches good values, Chinese teenagers started wearing fake Peppa Pig tattoos and drawing her on their arms, which is pretty ironic. That culture eventually spread across social media, and all of this caused her image to become associated with rebellion for many people in China. It's funny that the situation got so serious that the app had to do a complete cleanup, banning every video related to Peppa Pig. It's very likely that they banned both videos connected to that rebellious trend and completely normal videos that simply got caught in the crossfire. There's a new video here every day, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date. Peppa Pig. If that controversy in China sounds crazy, then what can we say about the violent Peppa Pig parody? Its name is Peppa Pig, and it's a series of animated videos created by a Mexican animator named Ricardo Adrián Lozoya. While regular Peppa Pig episodes are filled with games and silly jokes, Peppa Pig goes in a completely different direction, with violent scenes and jokes that no child should be hearing. Peppa herself is a completely exaggerated version of the little pig we all know so well. Family Guy parody. Actually, Peppa Pig has been the target of plenty of inappropriate parodies, and Family Guy didn't miss the chance to make fun of the little pig, making a dark joke about Peppa losing her life. There was one time when Joe, a police officer, met a certain pig couple. Just look at their faces. They're identical to Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig. Their house is also identical to the pig's old home, as you can see. Any doubt that might have still been left disappeared when Joe asked if they were Peppa Pig's parents, and the couple said yes. Then he said he had bad news, implying that Peppa had died and the police had found her lifeless body. That scene would traumatize a lot of Peppa Pig fans, and that's exactly why Family Guy isn't made for kids to watch. Joe didn't even use a name similar to Peppa's when talking about the little pig, like what happens in a lot of copies. He actually said Peppa Pig, showing that this show isn't afraid at all to make fun of cartoons that are so beloved by children. Okay, that's shocking, but did you know that you probably watch a copy of Peppa Pig? Because this copy has become one of the most successful cartoons out there today. But hold on, because this topic is more complicated than it seems, so stick with us. Bluey. Yes, that's right, Bluey is a copy of Peppa Pig, or at least that's what a lot of people think, for several different reasons. There's no denying that the two shows have a lot in common. Both are children's cartoons about a girl who loves to play, has a younger brother or sister, a somewhat goofy dad, and a smart mom. Not to mention that both shows take place in worlds where the people are animals. Both the pig family and the healer family live on top of hills, and the list goes on. However, the strongest piece of evidence is that Joe Brumm, the creator of Bluey, worked as an animator on Peppa Pig before creating his biggest show. It makes sense that he took what already worked in the Little Pig show and brought some of it into his own creation. However, Bluey has something that most copies don't have: quality. The show has well-written characters, episodes with great messages, and it doesn't steal Peppa Pig's visual identity, having an animation style of its own. It's no surprise that a lot of people even prefer Bluey over Peppa Pig. That's why it's fair to say that Bluey isn't really a copy, but rather a show that took inspiration from another one and used that inspiration to create something completely new. Or do you think the Little Blue Dog series really is plagiarism?
We've left 2 videos on your screen so you can choose and keep having fun with us. See you in the next video!